Steele. Let me welcome on to Arise Guerrilla News 23rd broadcast 107. Sir, are you with us?
I am. How you doing there? You know,
very happy to see you.
A lot of what's happening in the world right now, I love David Icke does just a beautiful job of explaining things on so many levels, and he and I do have very similar views on much of what's gone on out here. The thing that I keyed on with what David was saying, this perception of reality. So much of what occurs in the world, so much of what has occurred in the lives of the people in this audience pivots on one place, one moment in time, where the whole world had to pause and contemplate an event. They were all involved in it somehow, brought into it. And that's what occurred right here. If you look, you'll see some X's right where these people are walking out in front of me. And those X's mark where the limousine was as shots were fired here in Dealey Plaza. Right there is where the kill shot occurred. That X is where the limousine was at when it was struck, when the president's brains were blown out. This experience that the whole world pivoted on, their consciousness, their perception of reality, their perception of who they are, what their country is like, what the world's all about, pivots on moments in time right here, just before and just after. Because everything we perceive, even about the politics, we go to Nevada, we go to Georgia, we look at stuff in Massachusetts, we see the effects of what, in my opinion, what in David's opinion, would be a coup, not just against America, but the whole world. As a result of what happened here, history was changed. The future that many of us would have lived was altered. Our perception of who we are and then our actions based on that were all modified by the events that occurred right here. Once again, right now, a coup is continuing. We cannot get honest elections anywhere in the world today. Brazil is in revolt over a stolen election done with simulations through a computer, with alterations in the digital world that change who gets to pull the levers and strings on our life. And it's done in this magic of illusion of an honest election. This magic that when you cast your vote, it's going to be counted the way you did it. But yet, if you protest, if you whine, if you cry, you're the denier. You're the problem. You don't get it. Because you're flailing your arms around and your head's in that headset that David talked about of reality, and you're not in agreement with what is being projected to you by all the various media, etc. Do you see how I'm kind of trying to weave this together, Sasha?
I do. Juan, let's bring it right down to Nevada and the flip. Nevada's gone red. You call it the Escher moment. Talk to us about what this means.
Well, red how? Just because Lombardo has become the governor? The question is the vote that we've seen even for Lombardo. He was the one that went against President Trump, the election deniers, the MAGA movement. And so he proceeded to the top of the list as governor. But we have other offices that are not going to win. Jim Marchant, the Laxalt for senator in serious denial as they continue to count the votes middle of the night. cameras go off in voting rooms for 7 hours, and miraculously people come in, and suddenly where the election was going one way, it changes and goes another. The cameras miraculously went off. It was just an accident, but we got them back on. But by then, the theft had already occurred. There's all sorts of complaints that are going to be filed, legal actions, etc. But we know from the primaries, we know from the 2020, that we're not going to get past the court system, which is going to argue standing. What was said, is outside observations because you're outside the fence. We have experts that look at the digital material, the algorithms, and they say it's impossible that this was a vote counted that came out of the people. This is an algorithm run by a computer, and the processes and the way that the votes are counted, tabulated, processed, it would be impossible if this was actually an organic vote by the people recorded through the vote processing systems the way that it's supposed to be. We're in a captured operation as a country and as a world. The whole world. You have people from countries all around the world watching this spectacle right now here in America. Is it just isolated to America? American troops and equipment, weapons of war, and billions and billions. And do you realize the entire budget of Russia for their military has been handed over to the Ukraine in the last many months? So who are we backing there? I mean, they wear Nazi artifacts. They have Nazi tattoos all over them. Russia has a long history involving the Nazis. They lost 25 million citizens to the Nazis in World War II. It's in the DNA of every Russian citizen. And America and the West are being cowed, maneuvered, manipulated into throwing men and equipment into the Ukraine to back people who identify themselves with the Nazis? Is that insane or what? How does that make any sense?
Apparently it does equals insane. Speaking of other cryptic equations, tell us about MAGA cubed equals E equals M cubed, or election equals MAGA cubed over corn. What does this mean?
Well, the MAGA movement, Make America Great Again, is ultimately what's really under attack today here in the United States. If you look at what's going on in the media and the candidates and the vote, all of the candidates that were have identified themselves with the Make America Great Again movement, which in the modern era is kind of the equivalent of the Reagan movement. During Reagan's time as president, there was this thrust of Reaganites and a Reagan identification. The MAGA is similar. The Reagan Revolution, in the modern terms right now, is the MAGA movement, Make America Great Again, because it's so closely identified with Donald Trump. So anything to do with Trump now is under attack to stop it. So candidates that identified with Trump and MAGA, they have to be attacked. That's what this whole thing is with DeSantis and the money behind him, the billionaire behind him, and then all the various media groups behind him. They're trying to say that the era of Trump is over, that the era of the MAGA movement, Trump, is over, and that we have to move on now. It's got to be something different. We're going to conduct ourselves a different way, and the idea that elections are crooked, that there's any kind of fraud in the election system, that's a fallacy, and anybody that says that is an election denier. You're in denial of reality. You got to retune your headset. You got to shuffle it on your noggin. Okay. I mean, I love what David said. Look, David did an amazing job in presenting what he just presented.
Yeah.
You're being presented with the reality that your brain has to hear. Think of the society that we live in, Sasha. Every single input into your mind is controlled. And the controllers that are puppeteering what you think, what you hear, how you move, how you act, how you spend, where you spend your life, energy, time, the people you associate with, is all being directed by these other sources that control the media. Okay? So when you think about that, you're in a situation where how do you even get to reality? What is the reality? Do you even have a starting place? Remember the Star Trek, the opening two-part show that was the introduction to Star Trek, and it was about a race of beings who could so control every thought that you would see or hear, control your imagination, that you couldn't even trust your actions because your mind could be so manipulated. You'd think you're drinking a nice tea and you're drinking potassium chloride.
Yeah.
Okay. They can control your perception of reality so that, you think you're trimming your nails, you're cutting your hand off. So you're in flames when you're just laying on your bed. And you feel pain and there's nothing being done to your body because they control your mind. They can cause illusions so strong that you can't, with your mind, overcome the illusion. Do you see what I'm saying? So here we are in America and across the world, these masters of illusion are trying to create a reality that we then act in. And this event that occurred right here, the whole world's perception of reality, politics, was manipulated from here. We shared this common event, almost like a timing mark in an engine for people that understand the mechanics. Everything in that engine operates around a timing mark, and it all comes together and it reaches top dead center. Okay, now all of these functions have to happen in sequence before the engine makes a complete revolution back to that timing mark. And everything has to happen with exacting precision. If anything's off slightly, the engine doesn't perform properly. If it's off too far, it'll blow up. It'll grenade internally. So they have these timing marks, and the best timing marks are spectacles, disasters, dramas that everybody has to get on the same page on, and then they continue through another revolution.
Indeed.
And so what's happening to all of us, Sasha, is that we are being controlled and manipulated using these pivotal moments, these pivotal places, these pivotal things that then bring us all in sync. And they take us on another merry-go-round around the block to do what they want to do with us, using our energy to do their purposes. And an election is one of those things, Sasha.
Right. I mean, it's good old-fashioned Canaanite ritualistic nonsense, Molochite worshipping, Babylonian priesthood, the harvest of humanity, the sacrifice of innocence. But what people fail to appreciate is that it is their attention placed on the icon placed in front of us that become the reality. And what you're suggesting, just like David, is that we withdraw our life force, our kundalini, our attention from these manipulated icons, correct?
Yes. And if you try to deviate from what they want to tell you, so many of the rest of the crowd around you are so caught up in the illusion that then you're the denier, you're the one that's nuts. if you try to rip the headset off and see what's actually going on around you, you're the problem. You're not moving in the same direction. It's like that scene in I can't remember where, in Turkey, where the guy's in drug prison and everybody's going around in a circle.
Oh yeah.
And I can't think
Midnight
I thought it was
Express.
Midnight Express. I was trying to say Midnight Cowboy, and I knew that wasn't right. Midnight Express, yes. And so in Midnight Express, all of the prisoners have to walk all day in this big circle, and they're just in this hodge, walking aimlessly. If a guy tries to walk the other direction, oh my gosh, everybody goes insane. They're because they're in this zombie-like state. And that's really what's happening here in America and around the world. They try to get us in a zombie-like state, all going in the same direction, where it's almost mindless. And when we say, no, we're not going to put up with it, we're not going to have our elections stolen from us, we're not going to just casually, calmly be herded into their reality to accept what they want to do to control us. And who's this they, by the way? Who is this they?
Indeed.
You have a elite. They believe that they need to manage and control the masses because they wouldn't know how to take care of themselves. They want to manage and control you like a herd. Why? Because even where David and I talk on similar stuff very, very regularly concerning this reptilian class that of elites, the Cains of the earth, the kings of the earth, and those elite families. The reality is that they believe they're more than human because they believe that they're a human and an extraterrestrial, a la from the satanic Luciferian bloodlines, that they fell to earth, that their father fell to earth from wherever, and that they're more than human. You're merely human. They're more than human. So they have the right, in fact, the obligation to manage and control and herd you and use you essentially for their purposes, their energy, for their strength.
Indeed.
For their food.
Juan, I've got Scotty Sachs in the studio with me, and I think Scott McKay joining us in a moment. I just want to give Scotty Sachs the opportunity to ask any question he has of you.
Sure, of course.
Hey, Juan, grateful you're here sharing with us today. I am the son of a United States Marine that fought in the Korean War. I have a lot of faith and trust in the honor of the military. Seems to me they have a constitutional obligation now when enemies, foreign and domestic, infiltrate and subvert our system as they have with our elections. We know the military captured the election fraud in 2020, ostensibly through Space Force, and in the midterms through 14 cyber units of the National Guard. The question is, will the military follow through with their constitutional obligation to in some way present this election fiasco to the American public and to the world?
Okay. Frequent question. I've heard so many people asking this over the last days and weeks and months. And let me try to be as precise as I can. If you're in a military situation, just because you landed at Normandy doesn't mean you're ready to start attacking Berlin or that it even makes sense. Even when we were attacking in Normandy and building out a beachhead, we still had people securing turf in Italy. We had other operations in other parts of the world that were still critical, and we had other fronts. We were still in just getting going in many ways in the Pacific theater. So with that in mind, just because you have the goods, if you're fighting a global operation, and what I just described to you is something so big, as President Kennedy said, a secret society, a group of individuals, Eisenhower, told you the military industrial complex, you're going to go fight them like swinging at windmills. And that makes sense? Seriously? You're going to go out there because good and justice are on your side. Okay. There's lots of times good guys go out and they do a fight and they get their head handed to them on a plate. You have to have a strategy. You have to understand the size, the magnitude of the enemy that you're fighting. You want to have a prayer. I don't want to send guys into the field to sacrifice themselves, to fall on their sword just because I want to, make a good showing. I want to go out there and beat their heads in. I want them to die for their cause, not our guys to die for their cause. Timing is everything, and you have to be in the right position with the enemy worn down properly to go for the kill shot. You don't go into a dogfight in modern air-to-air combat with an equal chance against your enemy. Our strategy is to go in, do offset warfare, and stay outside of their range, but still be able to hit them. Same thing back in the battleship era. You wanted a battleship that could shoot 16 miles going off against theirs that can shoot 14. We don't even get in range of them. Why? I don't want a dogfight. I just want to kill them. I just want to wipe them out. I just want to destroy them. I just want to win. With that in mind, just because you have the data, is that enough? The courts are crooked. It's a captured operation. You can't get to justice in the Justice Department. You have to have a strategy that has a prayer of winning. And do you even know who your enemy actually is here in the United States? I've said it before. I'll say it again. We're not fighting the politicians that you see. Those are puppets on a string. Who's actually manipulating those strings? What is the mechanism that is manipulating those strings, and who has their hand on that mechanism? Here in America today, and out across the world, working with similar situations or systems in other countries across the world. But here in America today, it's called SES, Senior Executive Service. It is the highest paid group of government employees in the system, and virtually nobody realizes that they exist. People don't understand what's Senior Executive Service. What's that all about? They're the shadow government. Every time Cheney had a fake heart attack, where was he at? He was running the Senior Executive Service. He was helping to get things built out. What does it handle? Continuity in government between elected administrations. Okay, it handles the time and the situation where elected officials are brought into office. It helps them to understand what they're doing and do it in such a way that they can don't put that online, please. It helps them to a beautiful person here in the interstate. What it does is it.
Tell her I'll pay her handsomely for that footage.
Yeah. Yeah, she'd probably take it. We'll go over. We have a few less people. So what Senior Executive Service is doing is it's the shadow government. It's running the country right now. Right now.
Indeed.
You cannot go through this lightly. And then what's the competition? So you asked me a question about the military. Let me finish this. This is very important. It's where most people aren't understanding what the problem is. Who has the size, the strength to combat the largest portion of our government hidden right in plain sight? Senior Executive Service hidden right in plain sight. When you see Washington, D.C., that all these agencies are there's hardly anybody in there. What's going on here? Where are they at? What facilities are they hiding out in right now? That's senior executive service running things behind the scenes, and they have a budget that you cannot possibly get your mind around. They have influence into the courts. They have influence to the politicians. They have influence into the media. They can reshape reality to suit their purposes for national security interests. Okay? You're not going to get past senior executive service and what they're doing in the country right now.
Yeah.
So what do you got to do? If you're trying to counter a coup, because senior executive service, that's the coup that stole America. That's the players that stole America, and it started right here for their operations. Those players came up with a plan, and they finally brought it to complete fruition in the Carter administration when they created this agency of government. But who's countering it? You talk about Space Force. Okay, yeah, Space Force, whatever. Can they do anything autonomously? No. You talk about the military out of the Pentagon. Shoot, the Pentagon's, you go there and try to get to, some kind of corrective action. They're in on the plan. Most of the senior staff are looking for their next job opportunity. Where at? Somewhere in some agency that's tied to senior executive service.
Indeed.
So
Juan,
you're looking to the one second, and I'll let you back at it, Sasha. But I just want to complete this thought. I don't want people to not get the other side of it. That is why what Trump did when he sealed up Cheyenne Mountain in March of 2020, before the last election, those personnel in that facility are still operating as though, as Trump said, it may be that we're already under attack and not realize it yet. It may be that we're at war. So out of an abundance of caution, he sealed up Cheyenne Mountain. And the personnel in there are operating as though they're on a wartime setting related to COVID and everything else. They have to challenge and look at everything that happens. Here's the problem. They're fighting a much bigger force, fully entrenched, as Eisenhower explained it, that controls not just the industrial and military parts of our economy and country and personnel and politicians, but also the media complex, the news complex, the entertainment complex, the food, the energy, every area of your life, every input that goes into your mind, as David would say it, is controlled by one part or another of this hydra. You're watching a bad James Bond film. And so in reality, if you're going to take that on, you have to get control of all of those puppeteering strings. You have to have an event that allows you to take control in the digital realm. Remember, Space Force isn't about outer space. It's about cyberspace.
Yes, indeed.
But there's a specific type of event that causes all the federal computer systems, military, various federal agencies, etc., similar to what happened in Hawaii when we had the missile event in Hawaii, to send all data and control along with all passwords back into the NORAD Cheyenne Mountain system, because it's as though we were just attacked in a military sense, and we have to safeguard that data, and it all goes back into that repository. And by the way, Space Force now handles not just security at Cheyenne Mountain, but all communications from all of the 5 services through the satellite system. So they actually control the choke point, the high ground in military terms. They have to seal that deal, and unfortunately, we have drama ahead before we get there. It's going to be grinding, it's going to be excruciating, but you're playing for control of planet Earth. not
Indeed.
just America. You can't go too fast on this, and you can't be too light-handed on it. You better have all your ducks in a row. It's Valkyrie. And if you lose for generations. We
Now,
cannot afford that. Okay,
Juan,
sorry to
now
be so long-winded, Sasha.
it sounds like you're going to be in Mar-a-Lago next week, and President Trump is, by best accounts, preparing a big announcement. Are you able to speak about this at all, and what can we expect going into the winter?
Well, the president will speak for himself. He certainly has alluded through everybody that's around him that he intends to announce for the 2024 election. And the problem is there's a kind of a protocol. It's not law, but that once somebody's running for office, you don't proceed with criminal things against them. You don't charge them with stuff. It's interfering in an election. And so normally a candidate running for the presidency usually doesn't announce till about a year and a half out before the next presidential election. Trump announcing so early is a challenge to these people in the deep state, if you will, to shit or get off the pot. If they want to charge him, there we go, trade there, apologize on that. They need to shit or get off the pot. And they've been waiting and waiting like he's done some crime. They've tried twice with impeachment. And now they want to come after him on the January 6th stuff. They've got stuff at the Southern District of New York. They got all sorts of angles that they supposedly are going to charge Trump with, and he's going to jail forever, and they're going to incarcerate him, etc. And so he's daring them. Charge me. In fact, if you go over to thejennifermack.com, my fiance Jennifer has a beautiful piece of art on her platform over there, and it's President Trump as the Matador, and taking on the deep state bull, the bull of heaven that fell to earth, the tale of Gilgamesh, the second oldest tale in the cuneiform writings, and he's daring the deep state to charge him one more time, because now that they're worn down, we've had all this intervening time to expose a lot of what's going on with them, how they functioned, what they're doing, who the players are. I don't care if you're talking about Hunter and all the payoffs, some of the stuff about, we were sending money to Ukraine, and then the money that the Ukrainians got, if you can imagine, we're sending them money to fight the war and take care of things. And they would invest the money in companies to get a return. And so one of the companies they were investing in turns around and is giving donations to the Democratic Party. Okay, they were supposedly just helping this country out to regain its secure its situation against Russia, etc. And in fact, it was a backdoor slush fund to the Democratic Party. Now the company's gone bankrupt and the records are in question. And oh, by the way, the CEO, he goes to Nassau and then he goes to South America. He's looking for some place to hide out right now. Why? Because the information is going to come back and bite him in the ass.
Right.
We got 50 similar situations all at the same time that are coming to the fore. And what these people want is they want a tactical nuke in the Ukraine. They want a dirty nuke event in that region. They're baiting. Why? Because they want to burn down the scene of the crime where all the money laundering was occurring and all the people that they were working with.
Indeed.
Where America's going and where the world's going is Russia's going to do military tribunals in the Donbass with captured soldiers and medical personnel from those labs that were doing genetics engineering work to target the Slavic people. You're going to have testimony on the world stage coming out of the Donbass, and they're scared to death at the globalist level, at the banker level, the people that manage these crimes to keep in control. At the same exact time, I will predict to you and your audience you're going to see Gitmo lit up like a Christmas tree. They have one of the great media outlet centers in the world right now for people to be able to report from. And you're going to have trials at Gitmo and trials, Russian tribunals out of the Donbass, and all going at the same players from different directions. Not coordinated. We're not working with them. This isn't some collusion between, Trump and Putin. This is both sides, for their own reasons, going after the same players who've had a plan to continue this takeover of the world that in our lifetimes, it's been going on for generations and generations and thousands of years, the same players over and over putting themselves in power. But it was perfected most recently in America in our lifetimes, most memorably with the events that happened right here.
Very good. Very good. Juan, brother, thank you so very much. I got 15 minutes longer than I'd bargained for, and I'm delighted at it, and so is the audience. Thank you so much for joining us today, brother. Very, very grateful, and happy to have made your acquaintance today.
Of course. And everyone, please be in prayer. There's things happening right now that are very, very, very sensitive. There's stuff that should be coming out late this week or early the following week on some things that tie to elections here as well as in Brazil and other places. The players involved, the information, very sensitive. Be in prayer for those that are putting their well-being and their families' well-being on the line so that truth will have a prayer of prevailing in this current crisis. Who will be valiant for justice' sake? Beautiful. We got some players that are doing just that. Remember them in prayer. God is real. He's paying attention. It's our world. He tells us that we have to take control of our word. He gave it to us. He's not an Indian giver, but we can do that with his help and assistance, and prayer's the way. Thanks, bro.